Alright, in this video, I'm going to be explaining the full combat system within Black Clover Mobile, so I recommend staying for all of the parts in this video. It's not going to be a crazy long video, but I think it's definitely important to stay. I'm going to explain from the basics to anything that could really help change the tides of battle. So yeah, we're going to go from just talking about basic combats to basically buffs, debuffs, and just the types of damage within this game. I'm going to do a separate stat video that it'll be hand in hand with this video, so I think that one's also important to watch. But let's just head right into it. So, of course, we know this game is a 4 versus 4 team battle with 4 skills. Each person has 4 skills. Let me explain those 4 skills to you. So, you've got the skill 1. Now, the skill 1 could be used every single turn. There's no cooldown, and usually the skill 1 will have to be an attack skill just because of the fact you need at least one attack skill if your buff skills get blocked, okay? Now, you will see this little thing right here will tell you if there's a buff or a debuff or just none on the skill, and as you can see here, there's a buff on this skill, buff on this skill, buff on this skill. Now, it will also show on top if it will be an attack or a buffing skill, because if there's no little icon on top, it means you're attacking no one. If there's a one little arrow, it means you're attacking single, and then this is AoE damage. Now, the 4 types of skills is obviously the skill 1, the skill 2, and this has a 3-turn cooldown, but technically it's 2 turns because the turn that you use counts as the first turn. So when you get, well, it's 3 turns. Yeah, it's 3 turns because, yeah, my bad. When you get to the next turn, you're going to see 2, and then the turn after, you'll see 1, and then the turn later, you'll be able to use it. Now, you are able to reduce the turn cooldown in certain ways with certain units, but it's not going to be everything that has that. Now, the ultimate and the combo both use special points, which I'm going to talk about very soon after. But basically, the combo, you are using an attack with the person next to you, and each person has different things that they're bringing to the combo attack, as you can see here, and leveling up each combo attack will bring different things, and you will need to level up both combo attacks to get the max amount of damage if it's both damage. For example, Raya and Lich have a combo attack that does very good damage, is very strong, but you need to level both of the combo attacks up to actually get the max amount of damage from it. This takes 6 out of 8 skill points, and there is a turn cooldown, but it's not 15 turns. Unless it's just 15. Yeah, okay, so it's 15 just singular turns, not actually 15 character turns. So this, it's 3 Voltos turns, and this, it's 15 turns that you would see here. So if we're at 1, it would be at turn 16 that I would be allowed to use this skill again. Then there's the ultimate, which uses all of your skill points up, and it's obviously the strongest. There's no cooldown, it's just how quick could you get back your SP points. Now, SP points, you are able to get back 1 every single turn, which is pretty decent, right? And there's other ways to get some as buffs, if someone buffs you as Season 6 Charlotte, or in the talents, you're able to get back some extra from that means. So that's the ways that you could get it. You're also able to decrease SP, so that's basically it. Now, you will see that there is a spreadsheet on what passives you have active, what skill page you have active, the gear set, the 2 pieces or the 4 pieces, and then the talents active, which I don't have any of the green ones on them, huh? So yeah, you're able to see all of this. Raya has it's the only one, Raya and Noelle are the only ones with all of their talents unlocked, and you will see the buffs currently applied on them with their full HP at the moment. Now, you gotta also consider one little thing, is that gear 2 sets are only considered inside of the game. So all of this, let's say for this, the 7% attack and magic attack is not considered until you're inside the game, which might be why your attack stats are lower, but the CC is still decently high. So moving on from this, obviously, in Arena, of course, there's 1 wave, but waves could usually go up to 3. Some buffs are going to last all 3, or are going to reset every wave, or some are per battle. There's a clear difference between the 2. Now, the attribute. Now, this is the normal type of attribute thing where blue beats red, red beats green, green beats blue. Now, when you are type advantage, you're getting 20% damage dealt increase and 10% crit rate increase. And then the complete opposite, for damage, for unfavored element, is reduces damage by 20% and reduces crit rate by 20%. So this is very huge. I'm not gonna lie, 20% damage dealt with 10% crit rate. 10% crit rate could change stuff, because that could be the difference between critting or not critting, and it's pretty big. I gotta say, it is pretty big. and you want to make sure that obviously you're not type disadvantaged in PvE content especially, but in here it's not really the biggest deal, but it can change a lot of stuff, especially for DPSs. That is for sure. Now let's talk about the yellow bar on the bottom. That's like the main thing I didn't talk about. On this thing you could basically see if they have their passive active, right? So it's gonna, this is the one that you see there is the just unique passive, which is the LR passive, but I don't think it counts the SR ones. I'm not really too sure on that exactly, but this is the LR passive. So just to kind of show everything, it shows your level, your role with your color, the passive if it's active, the SP, the HP bar is the green one, and then the yellow bar is your mobility. Now you can see that Voltos has the highest mobility, then Noel has the second highest, then Lich has the third highest, even by a small margin. He should have the third highest, and then Raya has the fourth. How it's determined is dependent on your speed. So your speed stat will depend if you are going first or not in a certain way, but it's mainly your mobility. When you reach 100%, you will attack next. But if there's multiple people that reach it, they say that it's random. If they reach it at the same time, they say that it's random, but for the most part, I think it means if it reaches at the same time, it means if it wasn't the same already. So Noel and Raya's are different. You can see that there's like a clear difference in their full bar in terms, because like Raya's like a fourth of the last part, Noel's like a half of the last part. If I ult right now, Voltos' ult is going to increase everyone's stamina to 100%. Hopefully it doesn't kill Asta. It does not. So it will stay in the same order. And that is because they were already different from the first place. But if they're at the same stamina and they're both increased to 100% at the same time, I believe then is the only time that it is random, because that is what it says in the combat guide, which we're going to be moving over to very shortly, because showing you in game now is just much less it's much less convenient than showing you within the combat guide that they have. But I have some other things to explain that the combat guide does not show too. So that's basically it. The mobility is what makes you attack next. As you can see, everyone's at 100% and everyone is attacking next. And mobility is more important than speed. But of course, if you guys both attack at the same time and then someone has like a 55% speed buff, they're going to end up every turn, the mobility bar is going to increase more and more for the person with the extra speed. So they're going to catch back up afterwards, which is basically how it works. So let's move over to the combat guide. Just to show for everyone, if you click on any of these check marks within the game, you'll be able to see pretty much the whole game guide, but I'm going to put it into a much more neat way for you guys. But I do want to talk about this one first. So they kind of forget one of the attacks, but we'll go to explain it right now. There's 4 types of attacks right now that you could see: the block, a normal hit, a weak attack, and a critical hit. So the block hit will reduce damage up to 30% dependent on your damage resistance stat. So this one will also stop completely any crits, right? So you're basically stopping crits, right? That's how it works. And there's certain buffs, basically total defense, which will guarantee a block hit, which is basically saying, okay, so you cannot crit me, and second of all, you're doing up to 30% less damage. Now second of all, it's just a normal hit, and this, it doesn't show it here, but it does happen. If you go in game, you won't always see this weak little this weak icon. So just a normal hit that does damage, like there's no buffs really related to it or any. Well, I guess there could be buffs, but it's just not going to be a weak attack. Now a weak attack would be type advantage usually, but obviously it's not guaranteed to be it's not guaranteed to show the weak icon. Now I just added the normal hit because of the fact that they don't include it, but normal hit and weak hit might be two of the same things, but it's just hard to say. But I like to differentiate them because they classify, oh my bad, I did not mean to do that. They classify the weak or hit by, what is it? Let's use the exact words. The damage inflicted can vary depending on the attributes of both the attacking mage and their target, resulting in potential increases or decreases in damage when the mage deals favored damage. So favored damage, the word weak will be displayed. So that means a normal hit isn't exactly type advantage, but even type advantage you will not see this weak icon guaranteed. And then of course there's crit damage, which to get the crit hit, it's going to depend on your crit rate and their crit resistance. That is going to be the difference. And of course, you getting lucky in the first place. And then also type advantage gives you an extra 10%. And then also, if they have any crit damage resistance, it's going to do that less damage. But yeah, it's going to make you do the critical hit, which is going to be extra damage, which is all lovely. Now, I keep on pressing that, but there's another part to this where it's going to be the part in brackets. Now, the bracket number, if we check it out, I'm going to just have to click that. All right, we're good. The bracket number is any buffs or debuffs. That is the extra number. So you could do 177, or we'll say 1,000 just in general. You do 1,000, but then with the debuffs and the buffs, you're doing an extra 15,000 per se. The buffs and the debuffs will be all the parts in the brackets, but you have to add both numbers. So 177 plus 178 is the total amount of damage done. That's how you're able to tell how much damage you do. Now then, we get to talk about the fun stuff, the buffs and the debuffs. So this is going to be the most implicative part that I think you guys should listen, because of the fact that it's going to get a bit more to the part that's important in this video, basically explaining a lot of the mechanics in this game and how it works. So these are all the buffs in the game. If we check it, it's going to be all this plus this. Now there's other buff types or other effects that fall out of this range of motion, and there's 3 types of immunities for certain types of debuffs. Now you can see we don't even have all of these if we look at it, but well, most of them are the ones that we don't have are the ones in the debuffs that I'm going to talk about just for fun, but we do have most of the buffs. Now, one thing that is important about buffs is that, let's say you have 2 types of buffs. Now, every buff type has a certain level of buff. So like you could have increased attack level 1 and increased attack level 3. If your increased attack level 3 is at 1 turn remaining, right, the increased attack level 2 will also be just in general, obviously, a higher percentage. So let's say you have 1 turn left on your increased attack level 3 buff, and you apply an increased attack level 1 buff, and a usual buff applies for 2 turns. Because of the fact that you're applying the increased attack level 1 buff after the increased attack level 3, it will not replace the increased attack level 3 because of the fact that it's a lower level buff. So you are not able to stack buffs, and you're not able to replace the buff with a lower level, only a higher level or the same. So you want to make sure that you're basically stretching certain buffs out to where you're able to have them for every turn. So for example, let's say we have a certain type of team. One sec. Let's say your team has Charmy, and let's say your team has Rhodes. Okay, she applies increased defense level 3 on her ult. He applies it on he applies level 2 on his skill 2. So usually you're going to be using Rhodes' ult first, Charmy's ult first. Rhodes has his defense on the level 2, Charmy has it on her ult. So you're going to be using her ult first, it's going to give the level 3, and by the time you get to this, most people will have 1 turn remaining. But I recommend you to not use the defense increase right away, because it will be futile, because a level 2 is not going to replace the level 3 buff, okay? So you want to make sure that this buff is out until you put the level 2 buff in. That's basically how I could explain it. Now, the only way a buff can stack is if the name of the buff is different. For example, if we go to Green Charlotte and let's say Blue William, because he's the one that's out on launch for most of you guys on global. Oh, I just closed it. Whoops. So Charlotte's buff on here is called Fortify. His is called Fortify level 3. So hers is just it's different. So him, it's a Fortify level 3, and Charlotte's is, it puts the number in front, then says Fortify here, or reduce damage taken. So you're able to put both of these buffs, even if they do the same thing, on the same person, and they will stack. Hers is 54% at max level, and his is 34%. So you're at like what, 54 plus 34, 88% damage reduction, because this is Fortify level 3 and this is 30 or 54% Fortify, because of the wording. So it's really off of wording that you're able to stack the buffs about. Now, if we go here, so other types of buffs is protection, to where you cannot target a person. Barrier is where they get extra HP technically. Now, barrier, you're able to stack barrier buffs. Those are the one thing that you could stack as many times as you are able to. It depends on if they run out or not, but yeah, it's usually going to go, I don't know exactly in what order. If let's say you have 3 barrier buffs, in what order it's going to get rid of the buffs as you get attacked, but I'm going to guess the oldest one gets shredded through first. That's going to be my guess. Now, debuffs. This is a very important part too, but this is going to be important especially depending on certain buffs. So there's 3 type of debuff buffs technically, or immunities. There's debuff immunity, status ailment immunity, continuous damage immunity, and even though those are all debuffs, they're different types. So this is where it gets a bit confusing. Now, these are all normal debuffs, all the ones that you see on this first page and those on top. That is what would consist of debuff immunity debuffs. Status ailment debuffs is obviously the status ailment debuffs where it's a stun. So stun, freeze, and transform is basically going to stun your person for 1 turn, and you cannot take your action for that turn, which is going to fall under a status ailment debuff. And then continuous damage debuff is obviously burn, bleed, poison, and then electrocuting, which why... I think they messed this up because burn is the one that could stack and bleed can't, but okay, whatever. Anyway, these are DOTs, and DOTs fall under continuous damage debuffs, and then anything else cannot be immunized, cannot be stopped, cannot be blocked unless you're someone like Season 6 Charlotte who has it built into their passive that it blocks it, but other ones would be remove certain effects, certain effect immunity, which I don't know what these two are, but it's mainly the ones I want to talk about is Silence and Taunt. Buff Curse isn't even a thing in the game yet, but I think, unless it's on like a rare or an SR that I haven't seen, but Silence and Taunt are the two big ones. Now, Taunt, what happens, they don't really go into it, but Taunts block you from using any buffs. If you have a Taunt active, you cannot use a single buff effect. So if it's not an attack, you cannot use it, and of course, it makes you attack only a certain person, right? Now, Silence... you also cannot block. These are all skills that mainly you can't block because they don't have any certain immunities. So Silence is going to stop either skill 2 or skill 2 and ultimate. You cannot stop the skill 1 because you need them to still attack. You can't just like skip your turn in this game completely. So yeah, those are 2 that you can't block, and I do recommend Taunt against people who have who have a lot of buff skills, who are buffers. And yeah, that's basically it for the combat guide. I explained to you the whole game in terms of buffs, skill effects, right? Combos, right? Then how to view attacks, the 4 types of damage numbers, the attack types, the cooldown on the skill 2, how SP works, how stamina works, how battle itself works, everyone attacks in order, right? The team setup, how it's a 4v4 and how the combo is between them, right? And then the type advantages, and then yeah, that's basically it. I will see you guys in the next one very soon for a beginner's guide and a stats guide. So thank you guys for watching, and peace.